Hello again, and welcome to the first real episode of the No Sugar Podcast. I am Rob Loggia, joining you again with host Janice McAfee, and today we have a special guest for you, Mr. Jeremy Webb, a sort of jack of all trades who hasn't met a challenge that he did not like. And if there is somebody that represents, I think, doing in my mind, based on my Twitter feed, I would have to say that it's Jeremy. Jeremy, nice to see you. I'm going to change this you just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah,
I have you tagged as guest, and that's a little weird. I'm going to change that to your name.
That's funny. So in the crypto community, I did something called FTSCoin. Originally, it was Project FPS, and the whole idea of it was just to create a bridge between where cryptocurrencies were being generated and held onto and the businesses that would accept them for a currency. Because in my head, what's the point of having this beautiful blockchain system out there if we aren't actually using it to its full ability? And whereas Bitcoin might not exactly be the best for peer-to-peer transactions on a small scale, there's definitely coins out there that can fill that and do very well. And so the fact that they aren't more widely used in society is kind of a bummer. It's another sign of people just not using the tools that are available, and that's sad. But I think getting small businesses on board with that, that's a real key thing to helping push the crypto community forward in the real vein of what it was first started as, in my sense of the things.
That was one of the big tragedies with the whole Craig Wright situation, is that ostensibly the people that were on that side of things weren't wrong. They certainly weren't wrong about the origins of Bitcoin and what it had been intended for. It's right there in the white paper for anybody to read. That doesn't necessarily mean that those are the people I would trust to implement the vision themselves, and therein lies the problem. However, their point stands, and there was a very real pivot in Bitcoin to something other than what it was, meant to be. Now, it's not that that's necessarily terrible, but it does still leave a void. It's almost like the people that support that wanted the discussion to be, well, now we're doing this, and the other problem should just go away. Where in reality, it's, well, now you're doing that, and that means we need another answer for that original problem because it didn't go away. We need a way to transact privately between people without a point of trust.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting thing. I'm an insanely huge advocate of privacy coins. FPS coin itself was based on the CryptoNote protocol, which was the basis for Monero, and so it was basically just a variant of Monero copy pasta, to be completely blatant about it, just because that's what I could afford at the time. And in my head, though, that doesn't detract from the usefulness of other coins like Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's just you can't think of them as one coin to rule them all when we live in a financial institution where there is massive diversity. You know what I mean? And so, for example, Bitcoin, if you were to try to use it for buying a coffee or any standard day-to-day transactions, that's going to be extremely limiting. There's going to be no real benefit to it in any way. If anything, it's just slow and not cost-effective. But if you were to look at $100,000 ACH transfer for buying a new house or putting a deposit on a new house, or long-term safe storage of that kind of funds, Bitcoin is excellent because it's got the giant, system, the network behind it, which sadly is kind of spinning more towards a centralized thing, in my opinion. But it's still a decentralized network that has the seniority and can handle the safety of large asset storage. Whereas something like Ethereum, why people are using it as a currency kind of blows my mind outside of for smart contracts themselves. Because what you have is something that can completely get rid of fraud in the art community and collectible community with NFTs, and then with smart contracts, something that can essentially replace the stock market if it's leveraged properly. And then with Monero and Ghost Coin and other privacy coins, you have this ability to transact with cash. And so there's your coins where you're looking at fast transactions, privacy, and it's a supplement for what you have in your wallet. And so I've never understood the infighting in the crypto community when you can look at the whole thing as being this broad replacement for the financial institution. And then you just kind of have to find each coin to line up with what it's replacing. And so then instead of one coin to rule them all, or it's, 6, 7, however many institutions you're properly replacing with them. So anyway, sorry, just a little rant. That's always been on my mind. But that was kind of the initial basis for FTSCoin, was introduce small businesses to cryptocurrency and then push them towards privacy coins that would actually be beneficial for those small transactions.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a great plan. You know what? I just want to reiterate the infighting. It's so ridiculous in this space. Like you said, there shouldn't be kind of one coin to rule it all. There should be diversity, and that shouldn't be a problem. We shouldn't be fighting or at each other's throats. And I think if there was more unity in that, I think if more people shared that same attitude, crypto would be more widely accepted now. We'd be a lot further than what we are. But because everyone kind of has their club and they have their influencer that they're backing, it's like, well, I can't promote or like your project because your project is going up against mine. But if it's good, if it's a sound technology or a sound project, why not help each other and promote each other? Why not come together so that we can have that unity? Because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, I think we're going to see more government regulation coming in. And there will be nothing that we can do to fight that, other than obviously we don't have to use their coins. We don't have to use whatever the government props up. We can still use the privacy coins, but I think if the unity could happen, we'd be a lot further, and with mass adoption. Then.
It sounds like you're saying the people fuck it up, Janice.
Yes, it's what we always do, right? We get involved in something, and we have these great ideas, and then we get into our egos, and can't see past our ego.
Well, and personal gain. I think that's just greed in general. Yeah. Well, and it's really sad because in the cryptocurrency community, so as kind of an origin to where I got started with my whole fuck it, I'm going to do what I want attitude, and handling things in a way where I try to be my own boss and just tackle as many opportunities as I have available. It was medical marijuana. And so I always had really severe stomach issues and back pain and all these other problems. I found just extreme comfort and relief from medical marijuana right around the time I was 18, 19. And then by the time that before that, from a non-medical stance, just buying it off the black market. And then once I was in my 20s and I was going through college, I hit a position where I had an opportunity to start an edible company. And I was like, Jesus, why am I sitting here banging my head trying to get this psychology degree that's not going to pay very well, when in reality I could just start my own business as an entrepreneur, help people that have cancer and these other debilitating medical conditions, make good money with donations on the side to fund my life and make sure I can keep the nonprofit going. And that was kind of what spun into my first real thing, and it was a soda company called Puffless Productions. I made it in like a Fox News blog and on some other media at the time, Seattle Times, that kind of stuff. But what I was drilling at is that in the crypto community, you see an echo of the exact same thing that happened in that community, which is that everybody becomes so tribal and so involved in self-interest that they lose sight of the fact that we're one big-ass team and we're fighting a system that is bent against us. The last thing the system wants is to see a redistribution of wealth from the people at the top to the stoners down at the bottom that they used to be putting in jail. Like that is just insanely upsetting to the powers that be. And the fact that everyone within that team has been convinced to manifest all this tribalism and infighting. And there's so many fucking people that smoke weed. There's plenty of money out there. If everyone worked together and seized the market, you wouldn't have things like what happened in Washington, Colorado. It's sure legalized. Yes, now it's available. For example, Washington is where I used to live, so it's what I know better. It's available about as frequently as Starbucks, and the prices are reasonable. But what happened was there was really, really insane and poorly written laws around driving while intoxicated on marijuana, where they can basically just do some arbitrary tests and then go, okay, now you have to go down somewhere and get a blood test. And then as soon as you've taken this blood test, which really has no way of marking your current acute level of THC intake and more just as a broad spectrum over a period of time, which is ridiculous to do to medical patients. If you're driving with your kids, they can take your kids away, they can take your license away, those kind of things. And also, medical patients can't grow in Washington anymore without jumping through a bunch of hoops. And the regulations for who can get a medical authorization have dropped down to honestly absurd levels that aren't helpful. And so because there was all this tribalism, as soon as a well-organized political force with money backing it swooped in and offered, soccer moms on TVs for legalization, that's what happened. And that's what everybody went for. And now, some of the growers I know up there, they spend, $5 growing an ounce of outdoor weed, including labor and all that. And then they have to sell it for $7 to a collective or to a distributor, because there's 3 layers. And then in that first exchange, they're taxed a ridiculous amount, and so that ups the price. Then that person that packages it, which is considered a form of processing, is then again taxed, and then the store is taxed at an extreme level also, where if someone as a grower lets go of an ounce for $7, all of a sudden it's still hitting the end customer for $60. And all that extra money for the, most part is going to the state. It's more than any other individual is taking off of that chunk of the pie.
Well, that's par for the course, so.
Yeah, oh, totally. But I mean, it's just an example of what can happen when pointless tribal infighting and greed destroys an otherwise good cause. That could have been something that revolutionized society and helped push some of the power and money down to people that have new creative ideas and have put up with a lot of bullshit from a system that isn't exactly here to help us. Mm-hmm. So
it's a shame, and part of me, it's one area where I'm torn. You can certainly understanding people wanting to do what they have to get ahead in a world that doesn't make anything easy. Let's say you create this thing. Well, yeah, you know what? I know that people tend to attach shame to the idea, but the person's put in work. They want it to pay off for them, and I get that. The problem that I have is that usually it's not a question of will it pay off or not pay off, but it's a question of will it pay off or will it pay off huge, right? I see my huge pile, okay? And then that is the part where it's hard to take sympathy with when some of these people go over to the bad. You just want it all, don't you? Now that's a problem, and I don't know that that's just a human problem. It'll always be with us. But some of the less ingrained things maybe can be addressed. I mean, one of the things I see come up with toxicity is this notion that everybody has to be as Catholic as the Pope, and that creates a real problem. Not everything has to be perfect. Different solutions will fit different scenarios, different people's needs, etc., at different times. So saying that something is the most pristinely perfect way of doing something, hey, you may even be right. I'm not even going to sit here and argue with you, and you seem to know a lot, so maybe you are right. But it doesn't matter. It's actually just that it doesn't matter. This may be good enough for somebody else, and it may provide value to them. Therefore, it's justified its own existence. And I think a lot of projects in the cryptocurrency industry that see victory as their coin being the currency for the world, part of the problem is that we do have these large currencies that dominate the world. Why people would want to transfer that onto something else, I don't know. And it helps a little bit that maybe it's decentralized, but it's still centralized if there's only one, isn't it? So yeah. That's not what we want. We want flourishing ecosystems everywhere. I mean, I want to see like RoadCoin, and if I use the coin, I support the pavings of roads, since that's one that I always hear about from people when you talk about taxes. They're like, well, where are we going to get fucking roads? I mean, roads have been a solved problem for 3,000 years, but I don't know, I think we've managed to build the roads. But something like RoadCoin could exist for no other purpose but to circulate, and I could pay you because everybody would have them. They'd still have some value because everybody didn't have in an unlimited amount, and you'd earn them in some way. But when I used RoadCoin, it would help get roads built. They'd get a whack of that transaction. That should be its own economy. And then a transaction coin, privacy coin for people that want it. All of these things have utility. There's no reason to say that one should go against the other. And unfortunately, our focus is on people doing things. And now I'll defer to you, Jeremy, but that gets in the way of people doing things, does it not?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you actually tapped on something that has been a personal struggle for me for a few years now, and that's the acceptance that profit and value doesn't necessarily have to be predicated on like greed or anything bad. You know what I mean? There's the side of things where, like, for example, the fact that grower's only getting $7 for all his hard work and the state's getting 30 off that $60 ounce. Well, what the fuck did they do? Like, that seems grossly inappropriate. You know what I mean? That's an extortion of a new system being put in place for the economy, and it's just gross to me. However, that said, the guys that go out there and they work their ass off and their wealth comes from the value they provide, there is no fucking reason those guys have to be a martyr. And so the idea of somebody, I don't know enough about his background financially to really say this, but just in theory, let's say all of Elon Musk's money came from SpaceX and Tesla and his actual projects that he's done and the value he provided people, then you fuck anyone that says he doesn't deserve that money. Like, he worked his ass off for it. He provided the value. He deserves every goddamn penny. But if you got some fat cat smoking cigars on Wall Street, shuffling around money and shoving his pinky up his asshole all day, I don't think he deserves a quarter of what he gets. And that's
is that what they do?
I mean, I just either that or do blow and hang out with hookers, man. It's one of the two.
But that sounds more fun than the first one.
Some of them are weird, dude. Wearing girl panties, shoving a finger up their asshole. That's about how I imagine Wall Street.
I didn't even think they would have found new and exciting ways. Listen, let's stop that there.
So anyway, another thing that I've really been chewing on lately is this concept of free-range slavery. And so it's that because people have been convinced that having great wealth or having great value or having a large store of resources is a sign that you're a bad person or that you've done something terrible in the economy or something like that, that it forces people into these situations where they take these jobs for $10 an hour, $15 an hour, $25 an hour that offer no upward growth. And there's this old saying that money doesn't buy happiness, right? And if you look at the psychological research, that's true after $100,000 a year. Up to $100,000 a year, it's really hard to survive if you're anything less than that amount of income. And I can guarantee most people can throw a rock and not hit somebody with that level of income already. And so at that point, that's the tipping point from where money affects happiness and it doesn't. If you do the math on that, that means that anyone that accepts a job for under $50 an hour for someone else has just gone to them and said, hey, happy to be your slave. I accept the fact there's no upward momentum, and I'm going to be your free-range slave that you are going to profit off of for the rest of time. And so with that in mind, I would rather fail at 100 of my own projects than be someone else's slave. Like, that just sounds like bullshit, even if it's provided in a form that seems like I'm free. And so that's a big driving factor behind a lot of what I do, is just kind of trying to make sure I don't wind up anyone else's slave but my own.
That's great. I think that's great that you have your hand in so many different projects. That's something that Sean tried to foster or advise, that you put your hand in some of everything, and maybe all of the projects won't do well. And that's fine, but something might succeed. And so the more, I'll take your terminology, Rob, the more hooks you put out there, the more fish you're likely to catch. And if you fail, then that's it. You just fail, and you just get up and you try something else again. And even in the failure, you're still learning.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
still learning about yourself. You're learning about what you may want to do with your life, or just learning about life in general. And I don't think that people can see that just because they're so focused on providing for their daily needs, their family, which is also very important. But if that's all that you're focused on, then obviously it's going to be difficult for you to then step outside of that system of slavery, if you will, where you're having to accept a job for less than $50 or as you stated. And I think it's just difficult for people to get out of that mindset, when you've been doing something for so long, or you're doing something because this is what you were taught to do. It's scary to try to figure out how do I break out of that, or I'm gonna just try to do this even though nobody said I could, or is supporting me, or whatever. I'm gonna go against the grain. It's obviously a scary thing to do, but it's also very necessary.
Yeah.
It's
even scarier when you realize that it was by design, and then you suddenly you're thrilled with yourself, and you feel great about your realization, and you set out in the world to try to do it, and you realize everybody's against you doing it. They want you to stay where you were. In fact, the system was designed that you be there, and you're kind of becoming the squeaky wheel by not doing that. And as sort of a follow-up to what you were just saying, Janice, I want to ask Jeremy, because and I will say this as a person that is simpatico with your many things at once philosophy, and our Janice and my mutual acquaintance John McAfee was the exact same way. But here I would say, talk to our viewers. You don't suffer from something that I see a lot of people who are also like that at risk for, which is starting a lot of things and finishing none of them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, just following your Twitter and the things that pop up, I've seen you now finish several things. You bring them through to conclusion. What would you say to the people that, like you, are full of wonderful ideas and maybe start on some of them, but don't ever finish them for whatever reason?
That is actually a very hard thing to come across or to come to, and
You're welcome.
Oh yeah, no. I was going to say, I spent my whole time in my early 20s kind of in that other category of people that started things, and then as soon as they got hard, I would go, oh shit, and back out. And I realized I was just wasting a lot of time, because I was going to keep banging my head into projects and trying to make them happen. And if every time they got hard or things hit a road bump, I backed out, that's a shit show. You know what I mean? You're just literally constantly wasting your time. So it's a lot better for me to arrange things in ways that, I can give you an idea of the broad spectrum I have going. I try to arrange things now in a way where I have smaller projects that, if needed, I could throw away and they're no big deal. And then I also have bigger projects that are main concentrations, and those ones I just will not give up on no matter what. And so, idea, probably my biggest project right now is down in McAlester, Oklahoma, which is where I live. I own Webb Computer Repair. It's basically the only decent repair company in the area for...
Janice, not to interrupt you, Jeremy. But
oh, no, you're good.
Janice, you're going to love what he says next. Go on.
Okay, it's the only, decent repair company in the area for phone screens, tablet screens, computer upgrades, operational security. If people, for example, have a loved one that recently died, my company unlocks their computer for free and gets their family and relatives the photos and that kind of stuff off it. My company also donates 5% of its profits to cancer patients, just directly as gifts, if anyone ever comes forward to us with it. And the whole thing is basically based around the idea that people are going to accept someone that honestly proposes their value to them and then follows through on it, and that as long as you follow through with that, the whole snowball is just going to keep growing, and you can kind of do good things for the community along the way with it, like the cancer thing and the opening up computers and unlocking them for people that need those photos of loved ones and that kind of stuff. But even that project has struggles that if I wasn't ready for the fires of having a business, would have backed out already. Example being, I was hacked for close to $2,000 out of my bank accounts the past few weeks. And that was after I had caught this group of hackers that had basically social engineered an old woman in town out of $30,000 the past 4 years. And so after I identified this situation, helped her to report everyone, got everything cleaned out of her system, less than a week later, all of a sudden $800 went missing from my bank account. And then after I replaced the debit card, another $1,200 went missing. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I know who and what that is. That's pretty apparent. Like, they didn't cover their tracks very well. But if I wasn't ready to handle a bunch of bullshit, something like that would have made me back out right away. And instead, I just did what I had to protect the company and protect the systems I use and move the fuck on. And that's
you have to be fucking pond life to socially engineer an old woman. I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Oh yeah, no, it was really disgusting. So what they did is they sent her an email and said, hey, we were searching on the equivalent of Google on the dark web, and when we did this broad crawl of every site on the dark web, we found your information everywhere, and people are getting loans with your information, et cetera, et cetera. We are going to need, what was it, like $1,500 a month from you in order to get all this information removed and to protect you. And because she was wealthier, she did that for years. And so then finally she came to me because all of a sudden they were asking for her routing number, her mom's maiden name, her bank account number, and a whole bunch of other things. And when she went to her bank and said, hey, should I do this? This seems sketchy. They were like, no, you have hackers that have been manipulating you. You need to go see a computer expert, specifically somebody that deals with security. And so then she came in to me, and $75 later, she's not paying $1,500 a month anymore. So, yeah. But and so that's an example of one of my core projects, and that one, you can put me through the fires of hell, and every time I get through something like this, I'm just going to go, hey, that's one more thing that my competition wouldn't have put up with. That's one more thing that refined me down to being the guy in town that can handle this shit. Then I also have an example of something that I just kind of do as a side hustle that I don't really give too much of a shit about, and that's I also do intake for a veteran evaluation services doctor's office thing from my office as I'm working on computers, just anytime that they need an intake for it. And that, it's decent pay and it's nice helping veterans and that kind of stuff. But if they just never called me again, I wouldn't care. And that's kind of the bonus of having, God, what do I have going right now? I have the computer repair company. I have my Kratom company still. I have the podcast, Amateur Reality Hackers, that's starting November 11th. I have, the VES thing I do. And then also I do kind of like a business incubator thing where my company will own 20% of other people's companies and do all the business side of things for them.
It's like Mr. No Sugar. I mean, you see why he's here first.
And that one, we just acquired an entertainment company that we're getting off the ground and a masseuse, and we're looking into other things also. So that's just trying to provide a value any way I can.
That is amazing. Way to really set a standard here for our show. So this is what the doer sounds and looks like. Okay, but I want to ask you something completely unrelated. So as you're opening these devices for the deceased loved ones, have you ever had opened a device and maybe come across some really risque photos, or maybe the wife who didn't know that her husband was cheating on her or something, a little bit of drama?
Yeah, so I try not to dig into the files. I've definitely found things like that. On some Yeah, I try not to dig into files. Every once in a while you see some shit though. But so I have people sign a form saying I'm not going to give away anything too personal about anyone. That said, none of the people that have had a loved one pass away have I found anything or seen anything that even looks suspicious. A lot of times what I do though is after I get into things, I literally just take the entire folder that those kind of things would be in and copy and paste it over onto a thumb drive for them. So I'm usually not even digging through their stuff just so they can maintain that privacy. That said, I did have one funny job, and I'm gonna completely leave out any details about the person for anonymity's sake. But needless to say, they were very eager to have me get their laptop working again and pull the info off of their hard drive because of their cache of Russian porn. And so that they were very desperate to get that back, and I was able to oblige them. So that's every once in a while you do get some fun jobs like that. And I'm personally
doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, well, it's non-judgmental, man. That's worst thing that could happen is they have to go to X-Hamster or something. So.
Listen, if I had a hard drive full of photos of Putin with a donkey, I'd be a little worried myself. So.
Oh goodness!
I think we have a little bit of time. If you'd like to tell us what you're going to do on the podcast, we're advertising it for you here. And,
okay. So Amateur Reality Hackers. I mean, honestly, it's kind of based loosely on my concept of what people like John did. So I absorbed a lot from John, both between the time he would give me with private messages and just his Twitter and everything else. I tried to absorb as much as I could, just because honestly, the dude was one of my heroes, and the fact that he was willing to interact with me was pretty fucking mind-blowing to me. Like, I thought he was catfishing me, or just like it was some fake alt account or something for the longest time, and then I was like, oh shit, this is actually him.
It was me, actually, but go on.
Oh, no, that's cool. That's hey, that's an arm of him. That works. But to me, it's there were so many fucking lessons you could learn from that guy. The diversity was one of them. Not being afraid to make a goddamn dollar if you earned it was one of them. Not trying to cover up who you were, and just kind of the freedom and just always being who you are and being honest was another one. And the ability to manipulate reality in ways that people couldn't fully conceive until it had come to fruition was another one. Because oftentimes when things came to fruition, it was very apparent where his heart was and where the morality of things were, and they didn't necessarily line up with what people would say the social norm, but god damn if they weren't right. And so in my own opinion, his view of things was very right, and that ability to kind of augment reality itself is what amateur reality hackers is going to be about. So there's going to be a lot of talking to people that have done really cool things, like my buddy that's doing all the NFT stuff. Like I said, he's been a massive cannabis artist since the 90s. Trying to get him on there. My friend that's the lead singer of Electric Six, really good band that I like. Was like top charts in Europe for a while. He's going to be on there. I would love to get both of you guys on there. And then
they did that track, right?
Which one? Gay Bar?
No.
Shit. So they did one called Gay Bar that's hilarious. High Voltage, is that the one you're thinking of?
That has a fantastic video that goes with it.
Yeah, with the glowing boobs and the glowing crotch and shit like that. Yeah. So the lead singer of that, his band name is Dick Valentine. I'll leave his real name just anonymous for now, even though I'm sure you can find it if you Googled. I am in pretty good contact with him, man. That's he falls into the category of one of those guys that structured his own thing a little differently, and it's definitely
bizarre. Yeah.
Well, and check this out. So here's what he did that I thought was brilliant. He structured his band as a corporation from the beginning, or as an LLC. And so his bandmates are actually his employees, even though they're all great friends and have worked together for, 10 years, 15 years, that kind of thing at this point. And then he's kind of the center point of everything that coordinates it all, while these guys are I'm not sure their level of contribution. I'm not trying to take away from anything anyone is doing for him, but just the way that he kind of went into art as a business was very fascinating to me. And that I think is part of what, to get back to something we were talking about earlier, really pulled me from being that kid that just dropped projects to the kid that was pulling through on projects, was realizing that the big failure was I just wanted to do the creative part. As soon as it came to the grind and being the one that is the end of the bill for all fires that erupt in the company, I would back out. But that's what the real job is all about. You got to find things you love so much that as soon as you realize you are the synthesis point for all the shittiest problems that are going to happen, you're excited about it. And so I see that same thing from Dick. I see it from you guys. I see it from a lot of really cool people I'd like to have on the show. And Dick actually did the intro song for it. So that's
cool.
Yeah. That was part of the reason I was dwelling on him so long there.
Janice, when William Weld, if you remember, in the when they brought that guy in the Libertarian Party to run with Gary Johnson, after he made his comment about what a wonderful woman he thought Hillary Clinton was, one of the things that I wanted to see, which at the time I had plenty else to do, so I never did it, but I thought it would have been great, that video, High Voltage, with Hillary Clinton photoshopped on the woman and William Weld photoshopped on the guy. I mean, it was just a love story there waiting to happen. And it was popping in my head as we were running time to time, things would come up, I'd be like, oh yeah. And I would just start laughing because the whole thing fit perfect. And me and my wife both loved that song. We blast it from time to time. So thank your friend. He certainly lightened our world.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's if you ever want a private show with him over Zoom or anything like that, I could probably put you in contact with him for you and your wife.
Thank you. Well, hey, listen.
He's always happy to do weird stuff like that. So,
are you guys still there? My internet went wacky. You are. Beautiful. Okay.
My internet glitched out. Yeah, no, I was saying that if you ever wanted a private Zoom show for you and your wife, I'm sure I could talk to Dick and see if he'd be willing to do something for you.
I know the one my wife would want, but she can't have that. So.
Let's see. So the two main things that I would like to plug before we're all done is the Amateur Reality Hackers, which is loosely based on just all the shit that I learned from John and his approach to life, and has a very similar mission to you guys, but is going to be a little bit more about how you can personally better your life through my own, I have a great life in my opinion. I have a couple awesome kids, a couple great dogs, great friends, great employees, and go back 10 years ago and I was passed out in a motel off a tank of nitrous trying to figure out how I was going to find a house to live in. So it's definitely possible to come from a point of being in a real shit position and not being the best person to growing the fuck up and making decisions to be free. And so
Janice and I don't know anything about any of that. I'm speaking French as far as we're concerned.
So Amateur Reality Hackers comes out November 11th, 2022, and then NF Trucks are on OpenSea. And so I think we've sold about 12 ETH worth of NFTs for him, and they're all pretty fucking cool. So that's definitely worth checking out.
Awesome. Well, you'll give us some links. We'll be happy to throw them into the description for this show. So people joining us on YouTube can click ahead and find your projects. We are hoping, and this depends a lot on my wherewithal, but that this will also be the first episode that we project into VR as well as here in the normal meet space. So in addition to being able to watch on their phones or on their TVs, we hope that people will be able to watch this in a more immersive environment in VR. And then Janice and I are committed to doing that going forward. I mean, it's been a pleasure to have you. I feel like we could sit here and talk for hours.
Yeah. That's I'm feeling the same way. I totally understand. You guys got other stuff to do, and honestly, my phone's been blowing up this whole time. So.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be glad to have you back soon. Janice, anything else that we missed, or?
No, it was just great to have you on the show, Jeremy, and very much looking forward to checking out your projects and your podcast, and wish you nothing but success.
Yeah, not a problem. And best of luck with everything you're going through. Like that's all ridiculous, and I hope it all comes to a suitable fruition at some point, even though that's looking, hard to find. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I say this as much to her. Maybe enemies is the wrong word, maybe antagonists, as I do to people that admire Janice. But you've met the one person that will not give up. I'll say nothing more than that. Janice will get answers one way or the other. I'm confident of few things in this world, but I'm confident in that. So until next time, everybody, thank you for joining us. We hope this has been informative, entertaining, and fun. And we hope to keep doing this for you. And in fact, even if you spam our comments with hate mail and dislike the video, we're still going to keep doing it until we're tired of it. So the No Sugar Podcast, hopefully once a week, hopefully in VR, and we will see you soon.
Peace out.
All right.